Oh, happy days. My little orphan Annie's secret decoder ring finally came in from Langmuir Systems. Let's get this thing set up. Today we're going to install the Langmuir Systems limit switch kit and set up the homing capability on the Langmuir Systems Crossfire Pro plasma table. I've been waiting for this. I know a lot of other people who have Crossfire Pro systems have been anxiously awaiting a limit switch kit that will allow them to home their table. It's going to make production a lot faster, a lot easier, a lot safer for the table, that's for sure. It should eliminate hard stops, crashing your gantries and other limits, which is not common, and it does happen once in a blue moon. Usually there's an error or you screw something up, you're not paying attention, but it happens rarely, but when it does happen, it's very jarring and makes you very nervous. So having a limit switch kit that will allow you to home your table and put soft limits on it so you're not banging gantries or don't have the capacity to bang a gantry, that's a huge plus. So let's go through the process of installing this limit switch kit, getting the fire control software set up for it, and the firmware updated for the electronics control module that attaches to your table. Like everything that Langmuir sells, it does not come with an assembly instruction manual or anything along those lines. All the instructions for assembling and installation are found on their website. Now, a lot of people are going to be unnerved about not having a physical manual to look at, but I will say their online instructions for assembly are phenomenal. They're terrific. Very easy to follow. They're very well written. I mean, there's an error here or there, but it's usually an obvious mistake that's easy to look past. So use of the limit switch kit requires use of the machine firmware version 1.3 LS or later and fire control version 21.1.5 or later. Once the updated firmware has been installed, users must perform the reset defaults action in the fire control machine settings menu, only available in fire control 21.1.5 plus, to set the proper homing settings in the motion control board's onboard memory. Failure to perform this action will result in a machine that does not properly home. This is really important to do the reset defaults after you've updated that firmware. I've seen on the forums quite a few people have had an issue after they've installed the homing switch kit and done everything that they thought they needed to do, and they forgot to do the reset defaults, and they find that their homing switch kit homes in the wrong direction or still bounces into an edge. So performing the reset defaults, mission critical to get this done right. So we will have to make a mental note to do that, or we could just put it on a video. Going to need a 5mm socket, a 5/64 Allen key, and a pair of 9/16 box wrenches. File limit switch kit assembly instructions PDF for all required installation and configurations setups or steps. So let's go there. Actually, we're going to open that in a new window. Now this does come with the switch kit, and it's a QR code that will allow you to scan it with your phone, and it'll take you right to this page where you're getting the installation instructions and setup instructions. Now the first thing you want to do with anything you order, really, just make sure you have everything that you're supposed to have. So I dumped a bag out. This is how it fell. So we have everything. We have our 2 limit switches. We have our 2 mounting brackets. We have the port connector. We have the 2 harnesses that go plug into the control board. We have all the zip ties they sent with us. That was nice of them. And we have the cable that goes to the limit switches. We recommend dismounting your electronics enclosure from the leg tube of the machine and placing it on its backside during this procedure. High voltage warning. Please ensure that your electronics enclosure is turned off and that the 110 power cable and USB cable are disconnected. That's pretty simple. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the electronics control module. Okay. First things first, like I said, you want to make sure you don't have power going to this thing, so I have it turned off. We're going to disconnect the power, and we will disconnect the USB from the laptop. Oh boy. You know, I remember how difficult one of these was to put on. I am not looking forward to trying to put it back on again. You can see that there. You have one right here, and there's one right up here, right above the power supply. Make sure to keep a hand on this because you don't want to drop it. Now there are two unused 4-pin connectors in this on this board here. You look right behind this red and green twisted wire. Here's the first one. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 pins. And then the second one is right here. So these are the two connectors that we're going to use. This guy right here and this guy right here. Now this 4-pin connector up here, we're going to use the green, yellow, and red 4-pin connector pigtail that came with your homing switch kit. Limit switch kit. I keep calling it a homing switch kit because that's what I'm excited about. So you're going to line up the red pin, the red wire pin, which would be this end pin here, with the ground. On the 4-pin, the first pin is labeled ground. Now, these pigtails only go in one way. They have, you can see they have these two tabs sticking up. So you're really only supposed to be able to click it on one way. They explain to match up this first pin up here. I'm going to use the pen. They explain to use this first pin up here, the red one. It has the red wire going to it. This is going to line up with the pin on the board here that says GND or ground. This is a one-way connector. It really can only go on one way because of the tabs you see. These tabs right here and this tab over here really only allow you to go on one way. If you manage to force it on the wrong direction, chances are you've got bigger problems. Let's go ahead and slide this on. So you can see that first pin. That first pin is marked GND. And then limb 1, limb 2, limb 3. The red one goes on GMD, green goes on limb 1, yellow goes on limb 2. That's it. Push her on so you hear that click. That means your tab is locked in. This connector's on. Good and tight. Now, when you're working in tight quarters like this on electronics, if you find that you don't have enough room to maneuver with, you can always use a pair of needle nose and grab onto this plastic and use that to guide it on. But be careful. It's easy when you're working with metal pliers and plastic connectors to crack something. There we go. Now we are hooked on. The ground pin, limb 1, limb 2, limb 3, and you can see your wire colors where they go. Their online instruction manual is fantastic. So we've got our two 4-pin connectors are installed, and here you can see the black wire, the number 2 pin, should be lined up on your 5-volt. Now we're going to install the EXP port. That's the expansion slot on your electronics enclosure. You can see here it's just this black plastic plug sticking in, so you're going to squeeze that, and it'll unlock it from the opening and just push it through. Okay, so this here is our little connector. You're just going to squeeze it. And honestly, I didn't even need to squeeze this one. It just popped right out. So it's a soft plastic plug. Comes out pretty easy. But if yours is tight, you just squeeze these together and it should push right through for you. But we're filling this slot, so if you really need to push on it pretty good, you probably don't have to worry about it, really. Lim 1, Lim 2, that is, I'm assuming that's referring to the limit switch. And this is the Lim port expansion. So what we're going to do, you're going to install it from the front, from the outside going in. And you're not going to be able to get all these connector ends through that hole together, so you'll have to do them one at a time. It's really not a big deal. Just pull it in a little bit, stick the next one in, and there you go. All there is to it. You're going to go over these again, probably one at a time. And then the nut that's going to secure the limb port to the case. There we go. We have an alignment tab right here at the top. This one, the alignment tab's on the bottom, so we're going to make this one the same as the top, and we're going to go ahead and turn it until that alignment tab is where it belongs on the bottom. There it goes, right there. The 3 wires that come out of the limb port switch, these guys right here, we're going to connect those with the 3 wires that come out of the 4-pin connectors that we just installed. They're color coded, so you can't go wrong unless you're colorblind. Can't help you with that, I'm afraid. So we're going to go yellow to yellow. We're going to go green to green. And you do want to make sure that you're going inside this blade receiver, the female blade connector. You go along the outside of it, it's not going to be very firm, and over time it could shake itself out. And we're going to go black to black. There we go. Now this board is ready to use. The limit switches are hooked up to the outside of the panel. So now all we have to do is reinstall the panel, cover it back up, move on to the next step. So we're going to take one of our limit switches here, and these limit switches, each one is going to get 2 cap screws. These are 5/64 hex heads. It's pretty small. 2 nuts. You're going to run a bolt. Make sure your orientation is like this, with the switch part over here on the right. You're going to run a bolt, one of these cap screws right through there. You take one of these little washers and go right on there, just like that. You're going to do the same thing with the other hole. There we go. That's what your limit switch should look like when it's ready to install. Okay, now both limit switches are ready to rock and roll, so let's get on to the next step. You need to make sure that the washers are on top, because these washers are going to go between the limit switch and the bracket. I assume that Langmuir has determined that this is the best course of action, so we're going to follow their lead. Just set it on there like so if you want. Get your little hex head here. There we go, that's most of the way through. Okay, this should go without saying, but orientation is important. So this bracket has this angled top up here. It's going to sit on your switch like this. So I like to set my nut on there and hold it with one finger and screw the other one. When you're working with really tiny fasteners, this is just an easier way to do it. So I'll set it on there. Hold it with that finger. Get the Allen key started. Okay. Now it'll be easy to tighten those up. Now this calls for a 5mm wrench. A 5mm wrench is very small. It's a good chance you don't have one. You can always just use the small adjustable here. Get yourself situated on the nut. Be careful not to, when you're handling these switches, be very careful not to be too rough with the little limit switch here. It's fairly thin metal. You can bend it or break it without a whole lot of effort, so be careful not to really grab it too hard by that. Okay, now I've got the nut held over on this side. I can turn this in pretty firmly. We can go on to the next one. That's good. All right, that limit switch is on there now. Now, one thing I want to do, I want to look at this switch, and I want to make sure that the top of this raised area here, let me get this, there we go, up here, when the switch engages, you hear it click, you want to make sure that that is still above your frame here, the metal bracket. If that's not above it, you're going to have, the limit switch isn't going to do anything for you. So make sure that that sticks up when it's engaging. Okay, our switches are in there nice and tight. And again, you want to check it, make sure you clear the bracket. This one clears no problem. Note the angle side up here. That's a good giveaway for how you need those things to be aligned. Okay, now that we're all wired in, now our limit switch is going to mount on top of the spacer, on top of the tube spacer, and then the bolt will go through both of them. Just like so. Leaving these finger tight is also the instructions that Langmuir gives on how to install this. I'm going to make sure that this bracket is perpendicular 90 degrees to the tube. Make sure this thing didn't move on me while I was tightening it. Yep, we're good. As you were. Now this is the rear of your table. Remember that. It's important. You can't install this limit switch on the front of your table because it is currently programmed to only work off the back. So if you put it on the front, you're going to run into all kinds of problems. Now, this limit switch, see the orientation? Little angle spot? It's going to face towards the back of your table. So we're just going to slip this on right here. There we go. Button washer on there, we'll finger tight it. There is a lot of play in this, so you have to find the right spot. And I'm going to err on the side of caution, and I will give up a 16th or a 32nd just to make sure I don't have any crashes. I'm going to get these wedged in behind there so it can't go anywhere. There we go, nice and tight, didn't move. All right, our final step in this is connecting the limb cable, the limb port cable, and this will connect to the limit switch wiring on the x-axis and the limit switch wiring for the y-axis. So let's get this cable installed. Each one of these, they notated in their online manual. Each one of these is actually labeled with the axes that it goes to. So you want to make sure you get that right. So just remember, your X is your horizontal, running that way across the table. Your Y is your depth, running that way towards the back. Another thing to keep in mind, the X is considerably longer, and that is for the travel of the X gantry down the Y-axis. So make sure you get these plugged into the right ones or you're going to be yanking wires out. Now they're color coded, so red goes to red, black goes to black. Pretty straightforward stuff. Now I'm not 100% sure the best way to run this cable yet, so I'm just going to go loop it right over the back. But first I'm going to connect the X-axis, the long one. Really the only way to make sure when you're installing is that you have them right. The curled over end with the open slot down the middle, you want that facing you because then you can see the blade going in. So you know you've got the right connection. There we go. I'm going to run mine right through this gap here. That way I can zip tie onto the existing cabling. The use of limit switches requires updating to Machine Control Firmware version 1.3 LS. To update, connect to the internet and boot up Fire Control with a machine connected. If you are not running the latest 1.3 LS firmware, you will see a yellow Machine Update Available button in the upper right corner of the Fire Control screen. Click this to update your firmware. Note, this firmware update contains only updates related to limit switch functionality. Important, firmware versions. Once this firmware update has been performed, you must reset defaults in the machine settings menu. This will ensure your machine is flashed with the latest settings required. If your machine homes slowly, homes the incorrect direction, or tries to home in the Z-axis, you have likely not performed this step. So remember, we talked about this at the beginning of the video. Resetting to defaults in the machine settings menu, mission critical, has to happen. So let's get this updated. Make sure our firmware is up to date and get those machine setting defaults reset. Top right corner, update machine. It is yellow, so let's do that. You are about to update your device, Crossfire, to version 1.3 LS. This action will disconnect the device. Do you want to continue? Yes. There we go, updating firmware. All right. Your Crossfire firmware has been updated. You may need to close and restart fire control to reconnect. Okay. Let's just go ahead and do that. We may not. Let's just do it. Okay. So we're going to hop back out here because I want to make sure when I reset machine defaults that I'm doing it properly. So we also need to make sure we have the compatible fire control version. So we want 21.1.5 or later. 21.1.4 will function, but you will not have, but it doesn't have the default reset option, which we already know you have to have. So let's make sure our software is up to date. So here's your machine settings button up here, machine settings, and we are going to reset defaults. All right. We have now reset our defaults. Actually, I want to check and see what version I'm running here. I am running, if you want to know where you can find your version, it's up here in the top left corner. I'm running version 21.1.5, so should be good. Let's get back to the instruction manual here on how to set up these limit switches. Okay, in the machine settings pop-up, click the slider, toggle limit switches button. Toggling the slider will expand the window with more options. Ignore these for now and press save. So, all right, here we go. Let's direct it to home. Homing. You are about to home your machine position to the back left corner. The machine will move automatically until it is homed, so please make sure that your torch has a clear path to move without obstruction. The seek rate for homing is 120 inches per minute. We recommend jogging the machine closer to the limit switches before continuing. All right, we're going to go ahead and follow that recommendation and jog this machine closer to the limit switches. All right. Let's take a look here, see how close we are to our limit switches. We're 2 inches off here, about an inch off there. We're going to go continuous, 10 inches a minute. I'll just walk it over. Okay. And here. So let's go ahead and home this now. Home machine. Okay. After the machine is homed, the DRO should read 0.000 for both X and Y. We'll be using the machine coordinate readout to find the appropriate soft limits to set for your machine. So let's go and check and make sure that we are getting the digital readout of zeros across the board here on both the Y and the X axes. We are not. We have different measurements. So let's see what's going on here. I wonder if I had it on work instead of machine. Yep, I had it on work and not machine. So let's zero this again, but this time we're going to click on the tab up here that says machine, not work. All right, let's home that. There we go. We have our y-axis at 0.000, x at 0.000. We are ready to proceed. I'm learning as we go, folks. Manually jog the axes toward the end of travel. As you get close, toggle the jog mode to 16th inch step. The goal is to get the machine as close to the end of travel as possible without crashing. For the Crossfire Pro, get the X-axis carriage assembly as close to the bolt head near the end of the gantry tube as possible. Well, we're all familiar with this. For the Crossfire, get the I'm dealing with the Crossfire Pro here, not the Crossfire. I imagine people who have the Crossfire are equally familiar with their hard stops. Same process is utilized to find the Y-axis soft limit for both Crossfire and Crossfire Pro. Get the bearings of the Y-axis. Okay, so we need to run the machine the other direction and then get the measurement. So, excuse me, it's cold in here. So you see how we're at zeros here on the X and Y. What we're going to do, I'm going to get you off the stand here so I can show you this. We are going to move the assembly to its as close to this limit as we can get, or as close as we're comfortable with for setting our soft limits. And we're going to look up here and we will see that Y-axis number will be our soft limit number. Let's jog it down there. Since we are currently sitting at our limit over here, and you can see the switch is actually depressed. Well, the switch is being engaged. I'm not sure if that's actually depressed here or not, but it is being engaged by the bearing block. Same thing on this switch. Yeah, let me get you situated properly. Same thing on this bearing block. We are making contact. I don't know if that switch is closed or not. It's pretty darn close. So that's where the machine is comfortable with the home position being, and I'm not in a position to argue with the machine. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and move on down here. Okay. Whoa, that's not good. Oh, crap. Okay, that's a big problem. We just yanked this cable so hard it brought the machine to a stop. And I don't know why. Although I have a suspicion. I have a sneaking suspicion. So what we're going to need to do. So the way I routed this cable, God bless it, I can't believe that just happened. What we're going to do is route this cable over the box and just go straight up here to the motor. What's happening is we wrapped around the back side of the leg here, came around back here, and we're going up to the machine. Well, that's not the way that's not my homing switch issue. That is the X-axis plug. So what we're going to do here, we're going to get this X-axis plug out. When I put the X-axis plug back in there, I put it in the wrong spot. So I routed the X-axis plug here back behind the leg and wrapping around. I should have gone over the top of the machine. That is an important thing to remember, folks. Remember to run your motor cables the same pathways you had them when you started. Or you could run into a problem like this, which is not only embarrassing, but potentially damaging to your machine. And none of us wants damage to our machine, especially for a stupid mistake. So, I'm showing you the dumb mistakes you can make so you don't have to make them. There we go. Now, we're going to take our X-axis cable here, and now we're going to put it right in the top. And I'll bet it works like a champ now. That really was a dumb mistake to make. I'm so glad I got it on video. That's just awesome. That's good and tight. Make sure this one's good. All right. Let's try this again without making our gantry come to a screeching halt. I'm going to hit the home position. Nope, that's going to try to rehome. Let's try going to work 0. Hard limit triggered. Okay, let's clear that. Now I'm confused. Let's get this thing out to the table. And by the way, manually clicking that button will also give you the hard limit. So we're going to have to rehome the machine. I believe is going to be the only way to do this. So I'm going to walk her back there again. Let's slow her down here. Okay, we're going to get her in the neighborhood. All right. I do appreciate the fact that these limit switches, they absolutely work. All right, so one more time. We're going to home machine. Okay, we've got our zeros. So let's try this again now that we've rerouted our cables the direction they're supposed to be. And I'm going to be walking this gantry up here. I'm going to slow this down a little bit. Okay, that's pretty close. So I'm going to take it to 10. Okay, I'm happy with that. Our wheels are off there. All right, that's going to be our soft limit on the y-axis. So as you can see, we have 32.899. This is going to be our workable area from now on the y-axis, 32.899 inches. We're going to round that down to 32.8. We also have to do the x-axis, so let's run the table across. Let's set this to 300 inches here. All right. I can live with that. It's actually super tight. It wouldn't hurt to go a little further off than that, but that's pretty good. The washer's actually going underneath the carriage bracket, as you can see from this angle here. So we're pretty good here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to write down these numbers. So our x-axis travel is 47.866 inches. We'll round that down to 47.8. I know they say you can round down to hundredths. I'm not going to screw around. 6/100ths of an inch is not changing anything for me. So we're going to write these numbers down. So we now have our soft limit numbers down. Returning to the machine settings window, open the soft limits drop-down list and select Enabled. Use the X and Y values you found previously to set the soft limits. While the machine coordinate DRO will measure and display thousandths of an inch, soft limits must be entered to the nearest hundredth of an inch. Make sure to round down to avoid setting a soft limit that is too high. For this example, we used 47.8, and for X, 33.08 for Y. Furthermore, DRO will display the Y position as a negative value, but it should be entered as a positive value when setting the X-axis soft limit. Okay, so your Y is going to be a negative number here, but you're still going to enter it as a positive number in the machine settings. So let's do that real quick here. Yeah, you see my Y is a negative 32. Okay, so we're going to go into Machine, click on Machine Settings. We're going to click Enabled, and we're going to enter our values. So our value for X will be 47.8. Oh, I don't like that. 47.8. 47.80. They're probably going to need that hundredths. And for the Y, it will be 32.85, so 32.85. Press Save to set the soft limits. With the soft limits set, you will now see an outline of the machine travel area and fire controls program toolpath visualizer. All right, I'm liking that. I'm just going to go ahead and save. I'm guessing it's showing me where the head is because right now my head is all the way in the bottom right corner of the screen. So let's try moving it up and to the left. Jogging has been limited by machine's travel limits. Let's try rehoming. Okay. We're going to zero alt X. Okay, we're zeroed. Okay, there we go. This is making a little bit more sense now. Now we should be able to jack from here. Okay, let's go to work 0. Okay, we're set. So that's it. That's all there is to it. There's a lot of stuff to it actually, but it's not that complicated. If you have any questions, you have confused about anything, feel free to reference this video. I'm going to leave all of my mistakes in the video because they're mistakes that people are going to make. So wiring your cables, for example, and routing your cables. That's an important one to get right. It appears like it's working now. Let me see here. I'm going to have to figure out exactly what the difference is here. I don't think... I'm wondering if I zero work axes, does that erase my home? I have a feeling it does. So let's try that. No, because the home doesn't. Tell you what. Okay, we're going to zero work axes. We're going to go back to home. We're going to go back to machine. Yeah. So anytime you hit zero all work axes here, it appears like it deletes your home. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong here. I'm going to have to reach out to some people and see if I can figure out what's going on. But it seems like when you zero work axes somewhere on the page, it deletes your home. So we're going to have to home the machine every time we zero work axes. I think, yeah, I think so. I wonder if we go into the work tab, and then somewhere in the work tab we hit zero all work axes. And we go back to machine. Yeah. This is confusing. I'm not quite sure why they did it like this. So anytime you zero all work axes, you're deleting your home. So just remember that. So I'm going to go back to machine here. Now, homing's, as difficult as clicking that blue button and then send me home. So it's not like it's super complicated to rehome it, but you're going to have to rehome it every single time, as best I can tell. If you zero your work axes. I don't know why you would zero your work axes. It seems to me, now that you have a home position, that's going to be your zero every time. I don't know why it wouldn't be. At any rate, I'm going to test my soft limits here. We're going to run down to the end of the table. I'll slow it down when we get